Hi, welcome to Durand's Designs. I'm Brian Durand. Today's video we're going to make this model of Mickey and Minnie Mouse. Now I've already created a video about this, but I just did it very quick with no voiceover, and some people asked me to make a more detailed version of this, so here it is. Let's get started now. Okay, we'll get started. Open up a new document. We'll go 10 by 10 by 1.5. So we'll go up to the import bitmap icon. We'll open our file, and I'll have a link in the description to where you can get this file. Okay, so we're going to select the file, and we're going to go and rechange the size, and we'll just make it the width of the document, which is 10 inches. Hit apply. So we'll close that out, and then we will go to the trace a bitmap, make sure the image is selected, go to trace bitmap. We're going to use black and white. Let's look at my settings there. You can preview and apply. This works best for simple images with simple lines. If you have a more complicated image, it doesn't work as well. You might have to use a different program or trace everything yourself. But for this image it works well. So we'll just click on the image again, and we will ungroup it. You right click once it's selected and ungroup images. Now you can just get rid of anything you don't want just by selecting it and deleting it. And now we can get into making our 3D elements. So we'll select the outline, and this image worked pretty good, so we don't have to do much work on it. So we'll make a new layer, and we'll call it outline. And once we've done that, we will right click and move to layer, and we'll move it to the new one we just created. So now we'll go up and hit dual view mode so we can see both our 2D and 3D. And we'll go and we'll use the dome feature, and we'll have it scaled to exact height. And then we'll just set our height, shape height, to what we want. You just kind of have to play with that to see how it looks. You're just remembering you got to keep it within the size of the material that you have, because you're going to be building up, so you don't want to go over the material size. Once you're happy with that, you hit apply, and you can start on your next components. So you always want to try to start from the bottom of the model up. So you're going to start with the outline, obviously the body, and then you'll just work your way up there. So here we'll just select the bow, and we'll hit apply, see how it looks, and then you just adjust it the way you want it. If you want it larger or smaller, it just takes some playing around with. You can change the base height, you can change the shape height. And most of the time we're just going to be adding to the current component, which is selected down there. You can also subtract from the component if you want to indent the image. So once you're happy with that, you always hit apply and either close or start a new component. In this case, we'll start a new component and we'll work on Minnie's face. We'll hit apply again, and we'll just adjust the height of the shape. So each image is going to be different. You're just going to have to kind of play around with it, look at it from different angles to see how it looks. Okay, after you've hit apply, you can start a new component, and we'll select Minnie's eyes, or the outline of her eyes. And this one we're going to indent it. So we'll subtract from the model, and then we'll indent the eyes for the eye socket. You just have to adjust that again. So we make sure we hit apply again and start new component. So we can start a new component again. You can pick whatever one you want. I'm going to go with Mickey's face this time. So we'll select the vector line around his face and make sure you switch it to add to the model. So it goes out. You can just adjust the size, hit apply, you can start your new component. So you're just going to keep moving like this. We'll select the eyes inside the socket and we will see how it looks, but hitting different buttons there, but that's not right. We want those to kind of pop out. So we'll change that to add to the model, and that looks a little bit better. Now the tracing, automatic tracing of this bitmap traced the eyes wrong there, but we'll stick with that just for this demonstration. But you can go in and create a new circle around the bottom instead of the top of the eyes there if you want the eyes to be down in the bottom of her eye socket instead of the top. So once you're happy with that, you can hit apply and start a new component, and you can just keep moving down the body, selecting different things. If it's the same on each, you can just select them both at the same time, and you can indent them, that particular element, because you're going to have an open mouth that you can add the tongue to have it stick out a little bit. So we'll move on to doing the nose next, and we'll hit apply. And as you go, you can name your components right in the creation there. I always forget to do that, but you can do it afterwards as well. So make sure you hit apply, start a new component. But actually, before we do that, we'll go in and we will, like I say, name the components we've already made. It's a good habit to do. So you just click on each component, see where it is, and then you go and name each one. So once you've done that, you can just keep going on creating components. So we'll select Mickey's foot there, and we'll just go to create shape. Make sure the dome shape is selected, and you can adjust the size of the shape again until you get it the way you want it. Make sure you're turning the model around, see how it looks. When you're happy with it, always hit apply and either close or start a new component. Okay, so we will start a new component. We will select his other foot, and we will name that. And hit apply. Start a new component. And you just keep going through that process until you get everything done. Sometimes you'll have to go in and adjust your model if the shapes aren't the way you want, especially if you traced it with the automatic bitmap tracer. It doesn't always work the way you want, but this one's pretty good. I will have to make a few adjustments though as I go to the lines. So now you got to pick your next component you want to make. Just making sure to always check your model from different angles just to make sure everything's looking good. So we'll pick our next component and we'll do the indent in Minnie's legs. In this case, we want to subtract from the model, and you just have to adjust the size of that so that it's going to be deep enough. So once we're happy with that, don't forget to go down and name the component. Okay, so once we're done with that, we will select Minnie's body. Make sure it's all selected there. You got several parts. And we will create the shape, adjust the size, take a look, see if we're happy with it, and then hit apply. So now we'll move on to Minnie's tongue. I'll name that. And this one's going to stick out. We indented the mouth, and now the tongue will stick out. So make sure it's on Add Components. If we're happy with the size and shape of that, we can adjust it if we're not. This is where it's important to look around the model, different angles. To see if the shape and height is what you want. Sometimes it's hard to tell. You might have to go back and adjust things before you finally go to the toolpathing. So you just go on and start with Mickey's tongue, and we'll just zoom through some of the easier parts. Okay, so for Mickey's nose, we're going to have to go in and create a shape. So we'll go back to the drawing tab, and we'll do Draw Ellipse tool. Let's get the general shape size, and then we can go in and hit N on our keyboard once it's selected, and we can adjust the shape of the ellipse. You're just dragging out the points using your handlebars until you get the shape that you want. And once you're happy with the shape, you can go in and go back to the modeling tab and create the component for it. So to speed up the process here, as a lot of these components are pretty much the same as the rest of them. Once you get the idea, it's pretty simple just to keep going through it. You can start on Mickey's hand and his pants. So there's no line created for Mickey's arm, so this is optional, but you can just go in, create a simple triangle where you think his arm outline would be. That's a simple little indent. This adds a little more touch to the model. Okay, now we're going to have to go in and create a better ear shape here. You can see that they kind of meld together. So let's go back to the drawing tab and we will use the ellipse create tool so that we can make it the exact size we want. And we can adjust it after we create it. And we'll hit the N on the keyboard after we position it where we want. And that enters node editing mode, and then you can just go in and edit it till you get it the exact shape that you want. Once you're happy with the shape, you can go and create the component. Go back to the modeling tab. You might have to fool around with the settings a little bit. The shape. Okay, so now we have all the components that we need. We can go in and sculpt the model. We can get rid of some of those lines where we connected everything up. We can smooth everything out. Once we're happy with the model, just take a final look at everything. So now before we go into sculpting, we have to group all the layers together. You just do that by selecting the first and last and hitting right click and group. Then we're going to duplicate that group we just made, and we'll uncheck the original, and we'll just work on the copy that we made. So we'll just make sure that's selected, and we'll go up to Sculpting tool, and we'll go in and we'll just start with smoothing out by hitting the number 1 tool, which is smoothing, and we'll just go in, adjust our strength and size of our brush, and just start smoothing out all the edges and any lines that we've created on the model. Obviously I've speeded this up to save time. This video is getting pretty long. You can use the number 6 key on your keyboard to switch to moving the model around, as you won't be able to move it with your mouse unless you're on that feature. Or you can also hit Alt on your keyboard, hold it down, and you can move the model around, zoom in and out, and rotate. Now this model is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of complex lines or anything, because it was a pretty standard, simple model. So we'll just zoom through this quickly. And you can just rotate around the model, just making sure you smooth everything out to your liking. If you make any mistakes, you can just hit Control Z on your keyboard. You can always hit Keep at some point when you like what you got, and then you can move on to the tooling. So when you're happy with what you got, we will go to the Toolpath settings, and you always want to start with the material setup. Make sure that your model is all the way to the top of the surface. In this case, I just went with a 1H ball nose. I won't go too detailed with this, as it's a separate video all on its own. It really depends on your machine, how fast you want to go. You can see, even with a 1H ball nose at this size, it's pretty good for the details. Obviously, the smaller your project is, the dimensions of your project, the more detailed of a bit you're going to have to use, smaller bit. But for this size, 1/8 inch is pretty good ball nose. If you wanted to, you could go into a tapered ball nose. I think that looks pretty good. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. I'll have new videos every week. Thanks for watching.